Hi, editing Courtney here. I'm jumping in before this video starts because I filmed it in conjunction with my previous wrap-up of just the novels I read, but the video was like 20 minutes long, so I just decided to wrap it up into novels, and this one will be the comics, graphic novels that I've read this month. So yeah, and then I read a bunch of comics. I just went on a comic blitz. I read Empire State, A Love Story or Not by Jason Shiga, and this is kind of like this guy's just out of university, and he's in his hometown, and his best friend, who's a girl, decides that she's going to move to New York, and then he kind of decides to follow her because he may or may not be in love with her, but she's not in love with him. Yeah, it's interesting enough. The color is pretty cool. It's only pink and reds and blues, so it's really cool. And then I read At a Crossroads Between a Rock and My Parents' Place by Kate T. Williams, and I didn't realize this was a reread for me. I pulled it off my shelf and just decided to read it, and it's about a girl who she's finished university. She went off for a year in Japan, came back, and she's working on a book, but she ends up staying at her parents' place a lot longer than she expected. It's okay. I didn't feel like there was any real depth to it. It was just kind of like a little bit of day in the life kind of stuff. I expected there to be more in-depth searching of what it means to be an adult, because, you know, she's living with her parents, and people are asking, you know, what are you doing? And everyone else seems to be moving on with life, but she's not. But it didn't really go into depth or even come to a conclusion or anything, so who knows. Then I read a great graphic novel. It actually won a Governor General's Award, which is an award in Canada for books. It's called Harvey by Herve, Bouchard, and Janice Nadeau. And this is about a young boy whose father dies, and the boy turns invisible. And it is such like a wonderful story about grief, and that's horrible to say, but it's just, it's got this kind of, you know, childlike imagination to it, you know, because, you know, his father dies, and it's him trying to deal with it, and with his mother and with his brother, and the art is just amazing. And then I read another favorite graphic novel. Like, this might be one of my favorite books of the year too. I just enjoyed this so much, and it's called The Gigantic Beard That Was Evil by Stephen Collins. And man, what can I say about this? It's about this place called Here, where everything is tidy and neat, and everything is the way it's supposed to be, and no one really questions anything. Everything's just, you know, hunky-dory. And one day this guy grows this beard that doesn't stop growing and can't be cut and can't be controlled, and it's messiness and untidiness, and it's there. It's not here, it's there. And it's just, oh, so like thought-provoking at the same time. Like, it really had me going like, geesh, like, you know, as someone with OCD, my OCD doesn't really have to do with tidiness, but I could see that link of you know, wanting everything to be in order and organized and in control, and then to all of a sudden have all this stuff that you can't control, that, you know, you can't get rid of, that causes all this stress, suddenly coming in and breaking all that control. And it was just like, it was really well told. I really enjoyed that story. Then I read Little Josephine, Memory in Pieces by Valerie, Villieu, and Raphael Sarfati. And this is a comic about what's called in France a visiting nurse, which is kind of along the lines of what I do. It's in Canada, or in Ontario, it's called a personal support worker. So they're people that go visit sick elderly people, or just elderly people who aren't capable of doing things for themselves anymore, and helps out with activities of daily life: cooking, giving medicine, washing, getting dressed, you know, keeping people company. And it was about Valerie, a real life experience with her working with a dementia patient named Josephine, and it was really well done. I really liked it because she even talked about. So editing Courtney here, I just wanted to explain this better. She talks about how in France, and this is common actually throughout the world, is that people who work with the elderly, with the dying, with people with dementia, tend to be underpaid, underappreciated, and in some cases undertrained. I know in Ontario, it's a 9-month course plus a set amount of hours. I think it was something like 375 hours of practice that you have to complete. And even still, some people, you know, barely scrape by and don't appreciate the training or use the training very well. And she talks about that, and I thought that was really important. The problems of, you know, if they don't have someone to look after them and going into a home, how things become very, like a line work, like factory. You know, you don't get to form personal connections very well in nursing homes because it's like you have 15 minutes to get this person up, dressed, ready for the day, and then you gotta move on to the next person. So it's like, you know, brief, quick wash, dress, out the door. You know, you don't have enough time to sit there and say, hey, how's it going? You know, you don't see them as people, which is why I believe that home health care, you know, keeping people home for as long as you can is the better thing. I'm not judging people who do put their families in homes. I understand situations call for that. Not everyone has the privilege to be able to stay home and take care of their loved ones. But if you are able to do that, that is definitely 100,000% better for the person. Then I read Chasing Echoes by Dan Goldman and George Schall, which is about a Jewish family, dysfunctional, highly dysfunctional family, who are journeying to Poland to discover their past and try and find this mill that their family used to own. But I found it really memorable because it was focusing, kind of told kind of through the lens of this one character who was really dysfunctional, according to the family, and no one really liked her, but she was the one doing the most to keep the family together, to look up the history, to look up, you know, genealogy and all this stuff. So it was interesting. Then I read Algeria is Beautiful Like America by Olivia Burton and Mahi, which is about this woman whose family was from Algeria, but they weren't native to Algeria, but they were from a colonizing family, so like they were there for generations, but they weren't part of the indigenous population, and eventually they had to leave, and they went back to France, and this woman, Olivia herself, decides to go to Algeria to kind of look at her family past again. It was kind of similar to Chasing Echoes, except it was just Olivia instead of a whole family going to discover her family history. And then just for fun, I read Aggretsuko issues 1 to 4. If you don't know, Agracito is a Netflix series about anthropomorphized animals working in an office in Japan, and the main character is kind of like this, you know, quiet cat, I think she is. I can't remember. I don't know exactly what kind of character, what kind of animal she is. But anyway, her favorite thing to do is sing karaoke, but in like metal. Like she like screamo and stuff like that. That's how she gets out her aggression. Yeah, and the comics were like little, they weren't any continuous stories, it was each just a little snippet, and it was really cool. In issue number 4, actually, we meet a Canadian who's come over to the Japanese office, and it's a goose, a Canadian goose, which is funny because she gets really aggressive. And I'm like, yeah, that's a very appropriate character. So that's my August wrap-up. Let me know what you read in August, if you've read any of these books, and what you think, and thank you for watching.